The Fender Blues Deluxe Reissue amp in its vintage tweed looks fine and sounds good, but it can be better. In a series of videos, we will be carrying out a few simple modifications to bring the Blues Deluxe to new boutique amplifier levels. Part 1. Disassembly. To take the amp apart, you're going to need a decent pair of side cutters, some pliers, narrow nose pliers, a solder sucker, a Sharpie or marker pen, insulation tape, a digital multimeter, and a soldering iron. You'll also need a few screwdrivers and nut spinners. To start with, you need to remove the 6 screws holding the back panel in place. You can use a simple screwdriver, but power tools will save you time. Put the screws somewhere where you can find them later. When all the screws are removed, carefully remove the back panel. Be warned, there are dangerous voltages in tube or valve amps that can kill you. If you're not sure what you're doing, don't do it. Using a digital multimeter, measure the voltage across the smoothing capacitors. There are 4 of these on the board. If there is more than 10 volts across the capacitors, you need to drain them using a power resistor. This is a 470 ohm 5 watt resistor, held in place with pliers across the largest capacitor. Keep the resistor in place for 30 seconds. Measure the voltage again and repeat the process until it measures close to 0. The capacitors may recharge even if the amplifier is turned off and unplugged. To prevent this, we will connect a drain wire from the chassis of the amp to the positive side of the main smoothing capacitor. You could use a wire with crocodile clips if you have it. Attach the wire to the chassis first, then carefully attach the other end to the positive side of the capacitor. Once the drain wire is connected, the capacitor voltage will be 0. You can confirm this with your digital multimeter. It's now safe to work on the circuit board. Snip the cable ties from the power loom cables. Remove and keep safe the nuts and washers from the foot switch, power amp in and preamp out jack sockets on the top panel. Remove all the knobs, then loosen and remove the nuts and washers from all the pots on the top panel. Remove the nuts and washers from the input jacks. Keep everything safe. You're going to need to put them all back later. Next, remove the power valves by pushing the retaining clip upwards and gently rotating until the valves come free. The phase inverter valve and the preamp valves will pull out gently. The preamp valves are surrounded by a dampening material to lessen the microphonic properties of the valves. In the UK we call them valves. In the States they call them tubes. Whatever you call them, keep them safe until later. Next, remove the 12 screws that hold the valve board and the small single valve board in place. Again, keep all the screws and the valve retaining clips. Now disconnect and number with a Sharpie or marker pen the power spade connectors on the main board. Number the connectors with the corresponding number on the circuit board, so you can put them back in the right place later. Disconnect and mark the standby switch connectors. I've labelled them SB1 and SB2. There are 6 screws holding the main board in the chassis. Remove all 6 and keep them safe. I've put all the small screws, nuts and washers in a little pot, and the larger items like clips and knobs in a small container. Carefully lift and twist the valve board and remove the power connectors labelled P13 and P14. Mark the connectors so that you know where they go. Remove and mark the power connectors P19 and P20 next to the power valve sockets. Use a solder sucker or desolder braid to remove the single grey wire from the valve board. Remove the earth cable from the top right of the chassis with a screwdriver. These are the send and return cables for the reverb tray. Desolder and carefully remove the cables. You'll notice that there is an earth tag connecting the screen around the cables to the small valve board. Unscrew the standoff to remove the earth tag, then screw in the standoff so you know where it is. The power indicator lamp connects to the valve board and will need to be desoldered. Use a solder sucker or desolder braid to clear the holes ready for reattachment later. Carefully remove the speaker wires from the main circuit board and mark them. You can clip the drain wire from the large smoothing capacitor now. You don't need it anymore. Remove and label the P18 power connector. And gently remove the circuit boards. We're now ready to start the modifications. In the next video, we'll remove the components we're going to upgrade.